Welcome back, guys. In today's video, I will be going over some simple king and pawn endings. Before beginning this tutorial, I would first like to explain about the concept of opposition and outflanking in this short demonstration. Let's say white's goal in this position is to control the d8 square. White can achieve this by first taking the direct opposition and then outflanking the enemy king. So here, king to d3, this gains the direct opposition. There are a few different types of oppositions, but for this video, we will only be going into direct opposition. So direct opposition basically means putting your king in front of the enemy king, where it's only separated by one square. This creates a barrier between the kings and often puts the opponent in zugzwang, since here black is forced to give up the opposition. King c5, and white can proceed to outflanking black with king to e4. Outflanking is basically a maneuver where the stronger side's king steps to the side, thereby placing a file between the kings. This will allow white to march his king towards the target, which is to control the d8 square, without allowing black's king to step in front of it and take the opposition. So here king e4, king c6, king to e5, so white can continue his march towards the destination. And on king d6, king d4 gaining the opposition, and king e5 outflanking. So let's go back to the main position, king e5, king d7, king d5, again gaining the opposition, and king c6 outflanking. So I think you get the idea here. King e7. White has achieved his goal of controlling the d8 square. Hopefully the concepts of opposition and outflanking becomes clearer to you, as these concepts will aid you in understanding many king and pawn endings. Now let's go to the first example, which is a king and pawn versus a lone king ending. So when the stronger side gets his king in front of the pawn, the result is dictated by who has the opposition. In this position, it's black to move and white wins. King to c6. So the key to winning this ending is to utilize the concept of opposition and outflanking. So here black has given up the opposition and white proceeds to outflanking black with king to e5. And the goal is to try and control the promotion square, which is d8. So here if king e7, king d7, or king to c7, king to d5 wins. A general rule is that if your king is 2 squares in front of the pawn, it's always winning, since white can always waste tempo with his pawn to regain the opposition. For example, on king d7, d4. So back to the main position, king d7, king d5, king c7, king e6 outflanking, king d8. On king c6, white can start to push the pawn. And here with the king on the 6th rank and the pawn on the 5th rank, it's a theoretical win for white. And we will get more into this later. King to c8, king e7 wins as white controls the promotion square. And on king d8, king to d6 wins. So back to our main position, king d8. So here, d5, regaining the opposition, king c8, king e7, white controls d8, and he wins the game. Now, if it were white to move in the same position, then it would be a completely different story, since white is the one giving up the opposition. And here on king d4, black simply maintains the opposition. And if king b4, king d5 controlling the squares in front of the pawn, king c3, king c5, d4 check, king d5 with the king in front of the pawn, this is drawn, and we will soon get into this. So here if king to e3, king e5 gains the opposition and also stops white from bringing the king in front of his pawn. And if d4, king d6 controlling the squares in front of the pawn, And if d5, then the king is in front of the pawn. And in these positions, it's always a draw, regardless of whether it's white's or black's turn. Black draws with the simple idea of stepping the king back. King d7. By doing so, black is prepared to take the opposition after king e5 with king to e7. And after d6 check, king d7, black simply repeats the process. King d8, and here king d6 is stalemate. And if king e5, black simply takes on d7, and this is drawn. So we have seen that if the stronger side has his king in front of the pawn, but the defensive side has the opposition, it's a draw. However, there are exceptions. So the exception can be seen in this position, where white's king is on the 6th rank and the pawn is on the 5th rank, and this is normally a win regardless of who has the opposition, unless of course if white's king is too far away from the action. For example, in a position like this, where black can play king f7, followed by king g6, and black successfully gets his king in front of the pawn, and it's a draw. But in this position, it's a win regardless of who has the opposition. So here after king d6, king d8, even though black has the opposition, it doesn't really matter, because after e6, king to e8, e7, and suddenly black can't utilize the stepping back motion. And he can't take the opposition with king d8 because that square is covered by the pawn. So after king f7, king d7, white controls the queening square and he wins. So this is one exception that you would have to keep in mind with the king on the 6th rank and the pawn on the 5th. So now let's go to the example with the dreaded rook pawn. So if the stronger side has rook pawn, the game is always drawn if the defensive side's king reaches one of the key squares. And let me just pull out this diagram real quick. So black's king has to be in one of these highlighted squares. When white's pawn reaches h5, then it will be an easy draw, regardless of white's king position. So here black's king is on h8, which is one of the highlighted squares. And after king h6, all that black needs to do is just move the king on g8 and h8. And this works because white cannot outflank the black king, as there are no more files on the right. So after king g8, simply wriggle the king back and forth, and white has no way of making progress. He can't chase the king out of the corner. So here king h6 is stalemate, and if king g5, simply king takes h7. Now this is another example. If it were white to move, then this would be a win after king g7, and white basically denies black access to one of these highlighted squares, one of these key squares, and with the pawn on h5, black is simply too late to stop the pawn. But if it were black to move, king f7, black gets to one of the key squares just in time. And after king f8, king h8, if king h6 or king g6, this allows king g8, king h8, as we have seen in the previous example. And on king h8, king f7, staying in one of the key squares, and white's king is trapped. And h7 is stalemate. So that's all for today's video. I know this might be a little simple for some of you guys, but hopefully some of you will find this helpful. There will be more endgame videos coming up soon, so do stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching and have a great day.